We'll be beginning Skynet in about 10 minutes. This is KE5, ICX. W5FC.
Meeting on the air first and third Sunday, 7 p.m., W5FC.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
And as the General said, it is time for Skynet. And we are in control. Does anyone need to use the repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. Skynet? I'll take that as a no. This is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X DAE5ICX. My name's Tom. I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic. We encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using pro sign break very enthusiastically and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic at this time? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me this evening, and stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on this frequency with a PL tone of 110 decibel minor. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. You can go to the club website, which is Whiskey 5 Fried Chicken, W5F.org right now for a complete list. And remember to tell others about this popular net. You can also check in electronically by going to the website, looking for the Skynet announcement, and click on the hot link to check in. We acknowledge you on the air, and don't worry if you want to check in via voice, we will continue to do that as well. All amateur operators are welcome to check in, and you need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. The net is 90 minutes long, approximately, and is structured in several parts. We have general announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope, National Space Society events. The discussion topic of the evening, selected by yours truly, was up, space exploration and space history, Constellation of the week, space launches for the week, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical Q&A and 73 round. Depending on the length of the net, we will try to get to every one of these segments, but we may not. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are check in. So right now, what we'll do is do short time check-ins. If you are someone who's going to be here for a very short time and might want to make an announcement, check in now. Please come with your call sign, phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from. That's short time check-ins only. Okay, I hear none, so we will begin our general check-ins. First, on the electronic sheet, we have AA5AH, Robert Richardson, NT5TM, Tony in Bird City. That's somewhere near Dallas. N5BB, that's Mr. Bill in Irving. AB5M, that's Dustin in Dallas. KFIJHA, Chaz. In the Milky Way galaxy, solar system, multiple modes. He's everywhere. He's omnipresent and omnidirectional, by the way. And V5F, Virginia, she is in Worth. And so with that, we'll go ahead and take voice check-in over air. Please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
This is Whiskey 5, Golf, Uniform, Sierra, Gus, far northeast Dallas.
This is Kilo, Golf 5, Uniform, Foxtrot, Romeo, Jacob in Farmers Branch.
This is Whiskey Bravo 4, Mike, Ted, Dallas, low power.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Zulu Bravo Lima, Bill Farms Ranch.
Kilo India 5, Whiskey Tango, Joe in Lancaster.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James in North Carrollton.
All right, there's pause in the action. I'll go ahead and get those folks checked in. I got W5 GUS Gus, far Northeast Dallas, KG5 UFR Jacob in Farmers Branch, WB4 MFI Ed Dallas, he said low power, KF5 ZBL Mr. Bill Farmers Branch, KI5 WWT, that's Joe in Lancaster. Hi Joe. KG5 Whiskey Victor Lima, that's Dave in North Carrollton. I'll take additional check-ins. Please come now with your call sign, name, and where you're transmitting from. Okay, well, let's go ahead and continue. Let me look. Oh, yes, I almost forgot Echolink. I think everyone is checked in on Echolink. Maybe All-Star Link I'm not monitoring. If you are on either of those two modes and would like to check in, please come with your call sign, name, and where you're transmitting from. Echolink or All-Star Link only, please. I'll give you extra time. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These could be ham, astronautical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. Please come with your call now.
November Tango 5, Tango Bike.
NT5TM, Tony, go ahead with your announcement.
Good evening, Tom. Well, did you like aliens? Do vampires scare you? Have you ever heard of Catherine Bigelow? Can you put up with synthesizers from the 1980s? If all those things are true, you'll be interested in our Afterglow movie discussion focusing on the movie Near Dark from 1987. Join us tonight at about 10:30-ish on this repeater. The next White Rock Lake Amateur Radio Club Fox Hunt is tomorrow, starting at 9 a.m. We hope to have both the VHF and UHF foxes available for your hunting pleasure and challenge. I've missed a lot of fox hunts lately, so I'm going to try to get out there early. Tomorrow night, we'll feature a Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting on the air at 7 p.m. and a Racy's Training Net at 8 p.m. Everyone who'd like to share what's been going on in their ham world is welcome to check into the meeting on the air. Only Racy's appointees can check into the Racy's Net, but everyone is welcome to listen to the training presentation or to ask after the net how you could sign up for Racy's. This Monday will be the second helping of ham fixins. Please eat before the net, otherwise you'll get very hungry as we discuss recipes, cooking tips, and kitchen stories. Sometimes we even have parasite outbreak warnings. It all starts at 7 p.m. this Monday on this repeater. NT 5 p.m. back to net.
All right, let's go ahead and give the usual announcements. AMSAT, amateur radio, amateur satellite group has 3 nets available to the Dallas residents. Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. You can join the National AMSAT net. You learn about amateur satellites and how you can use them in amateur radio. The National AMSAT net will bring you the most up-to-date information on amateur satellites currently in use or new ones coming online. You'll need Echolink installed and you registered. You can find the net under Groups and AMSAT. Also, a live audio link is available on our website, which is amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston, Texas. We're fortunate in the Dallas area to have 2 local nets available. Both these nets encourage active check-in, ask questions of the net control as well as others who are checked in. We have AMSAT Net East in Dallas-Fort Worth every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on this repeater. Tom N5HYP is the net control. All are welcome to check in. If there's the first Tuesday of the month, it's DARC Club Night, so there is no AMSAT Net East, as that is the talk-in frequency for DARC. However, you can always tune in to the Dallas AMSAT Net West every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater. That is 17140 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Remember, that's a positive offset. It was mentioned earlier by Tony that there are a rotating set of nets on Monday evenings. The next one is the Ham Fixins net. But every Monday at 7 p.m. you can check in. We have a cooking net, emergency communications, Ham Fixins, Geek net, and Surprise net. You can find out more information about all these nets by going to the club website, W5FC.org, and look under nets, and you'll find out all about them. You're now involved in the Night of Nets. We have the airwaves buzzing until midnight. The lineup is, in case you missed it, we had TechNet from 7 to 8, Q&A on all things amateur radio related, as well as the swap meet, Rookie's Corners, news and information, and ham radio events and contests coming up. Skynet, that's what you're on right now, about astronomy, space, and space exploration. The Afterglow movie net that Tony mentioned earlier. And then on the first Sundays, he also mentions the Dallas Amateur Radio Club Meeting on the Air, or MODA. So daily, we have the ARRL National Traffic System Training Net. That's at 6:30 to 7 o'clock. Learn how to handle message traffic on this formal training net. Newbies are welcome to check in, as this is a training net. The NKS also conducts an evening net on the Irving repeater, that's WA5CKF. Frequency is 146.72 megahertz at 9:30 p.m. All are welcome to check in. Now, Tony did mention tonight's movie, and he gave a good description, but I always have my own description, something that is insightful, accurate, and perfectly presented. Here it is. Being a vampire in Oklahoma was one of the most boring things you could be, simply because nothing ever happened in Oklahoma after dark. Nightlife was dead, or for vampires, undead. "I'm sorry, sir, the bar is closed," said the barkeep. It was late, almost 11 p.m. The sparsely populated bar had other vampires sipping on their final cocktails, as they didn't drink cheap Oklahoma wine. Caleb returned to his Holiday Inn Express hotel room, the one with the avocado shag rugs, and tucked himself in. He set the alarm for midnight, since he'd have to sleep the day away anyhow. He sighed and placed the no-room service card on the outside doorknob. His best chance at getting a fresh victim was to order DoorDash, maybe a nice sparkling water delivered by dinner. By that I mean some teenage moron driving his dad's 1973 pickup truck delivering a six-pack of filtered Oklahoma sparkling water. Oh well, the news was about to come on. Dopey Oklahoma news. Join us for a change of pace to what vampires do in Oklahoma, or more popularly, near dark, tonight at 10 p.m. You can, if you want to, scan through the movie by going to the W5FC.org website, look for tonight's Skynet announcement, and you'll see a hot link for Near Dark from 1987. You can see the movie for free. Not the best copy in the world, but if you want to get a feel for it, you can see all the screaming and blood-curdling stuff there. It is a vampire movie, after all. All right, we'll continue with check-ins. Over on the check-in sheet, we have N5OF, Clay in Mesquite. He is now checked in online on YouTube. Hi, Clay. And I'll go ahead and take additional check-ins. If you'd like to join us, please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from. All right, we'll continue on with the next section is Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas, where and when you can look through a telescope. That one is handled by Chaz. So, Chaz, K5JHA, what do you have for us this evening?
Thank you, Tom. Good evening, everyone. This is KF5JHA Chaz. On July the 24th is the next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting. That's going to be in 6 days. The meeting is going to be held at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas. That's on Campbell Road. There's also a Zoom component for members as well. Now, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas also hosts Saturday night public observing sessions in this area. Skynet was picked to be on Saturday night, so there could be an opportunity for live reports from the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas public observing sessions. On the third Saturday of the month, that would be tonight, the stargazing is held at Cedar Hill. Now, is there a radio operator at the stargazing that would like to make a report? Please come now with your call sign. Well, if they're out there, they're probably looking at the moon or Venus or all sorts of different things in the sky tonight. All right, let's see now. You can check the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas website at texasastro.org for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing sessions. This is KF5JJ, back to our net control.
All right, thank you, Chaz. Thanks for the announcements. Next up, National Space Society events and activities. That one's handled by Bill, N5BB. Bill, what do you have for us this evening?
Well, thank you, Tom. My section will be longer than normal because there's 5, that's right, 5 events this month for the National Space Society. Most months we only have 2. So, I happen to be the Vice President and the Membership Director of the National Space Society North Texas Chapter. This is N5BB. The National Space Society is a nonprofit group based in the U.S., which is interested in the exploration and development of space and the creation of a space-faring civilization. Our local National Space Society chapter website is ntx.nss.org. Our group also has an active Facebook page. Just type National Space Society of North Texas into the search box. The North Texas chapter of the National Space Society has 5 events going on this month. Here they are. Number 1, last Sunday afternoon, we held our July chapter meeting at Spring Creek Barbecue in Irving and discussed the Roman Space Telescope, which is now scheduled to be launched in an Earth-Sun L2 orbit on August the 30th, so the end of next month. Number 2, today, July the 18th, Moon Day was held at the Frontiers of Flight Museum at Love Field in Dallas. The National Space Society North Texas chapter was there with exhibits and handouts about human activities in space. There were a lot of chapter members. Probably 8. If I haven't missed anybody, there's a whole bunch, or 9. There's a lot of people there. That's number 2. Number 3 event. This coming Thursday, July the 23rd, the inaugural, the first DFW Space Hour. It's the Dallas Space Hour. Let me start over again. It's the Dallas Space Happy Hour. Will be held at Jay Gilligan's Bar and Grill in Arlington from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. This is this coming Thursday, July 23rd, 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. This is not a National Space Society event, but all are invited. Sign up by doing web search for Dallas Space Happy Hour. That's Dallas Space Happy Hour, and you'll find the sign-up page. Join us for drinks, snacks, conversation, and networking with professionals across the space industry. Meet founders, engineers, investors, government and military leaders, researchers, academia, and innovators shaping the future of the space economy. Whether you're building, investing, hiring, or simply looking to connect with the community, Space Happy Hour brings together the people driving the industry forward in a relaxed, high-value environment. Wow. Event number 4, next Saturday, July 25th. Space Day will be held at the Fort Worth Museum of Science and History from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. The National Space Society North Texas chapter will be there. This museum is across the street from Dickey's Arena. It's a few blocks south of the art museums in the museum district of Fort Worth. And last but not least, event number 5, on Friday, July the 31st. On the last Friday evening of each month, from 6 to 8 p.m., the National Space Society North Texas chapter sponsors a social event called Space Rendezvous at Cheddar's Restaurant, 700 West Highway 635 in Irving. You do not need to be a member of any organization to attend. 10 people attended the June event, and I wasn't even there. I was out of town. So we hope to have a lot of people there, hopefully, on the last Friday of the month. The big National Space Society event each year is the International Development Conference, or ISDC. ISDC 2026 occurred in early June of this year in Virginia, near Washington, D.C., and I was there. Next year, ISDC 2027 will be held in Los Angeles, adjacent to the LAX airport, from May the 27th through the 30th, 2027. If you have any questions about the National Space Society or a local chapter, please contact Bill, N5BB, November 5, Bravo, Bravo, at my QRZ listed email address or at space@byram.net. That's SPACE@BYROM.net. And that's all I have, Tom. This is N5DD. Back to net.
Well, thank you, Bill. Thanks for those announcements. Does anyone need any fills? Have any questions about any announcements that have been presented so far? Please come with your call.
November 5, Mike Tango Victor checking in. This is Chad from Garland.
Okay, I think I got it. N5MTG, Ted in Garland checking in. Did I get it right, Ted?
November 5, Mike Tango Victor, Chad, Charlie Hotel Alpha Delta from Garland.
Oh, I'm sorry. 5MTV over in Garland. I got you. Thanks. Okay, tonight's topic, you get to be picked by the net control. It's a clever way of filling a section up for our net this evening. Since it is Moon Day, and it is another anniversary of the Apollo moon landings from 1969, I look for an article, something that might be related, but something a little different from what we've done in the past. And I did find one. This is a relatively old article, but it still matters. And it was from a Wall Street Journal online article from a few years ago. It's called Strange Objects We've Left on the Moon. It's not particularly long, but it is interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and read it to you. It says the following. It says, the strange things humans have left on the moon. The story of how we got humans to the moon is a well-documented one, but what about after we leave the lunar surface? What is left behind? Why do astronauts leave things behind on the moon? Well, there are many reasons. Objects that have been left on the moon. Often, it is to make room for moon rocks to be taken back to Earth. This way, the additional weight of the moon rocks doesn't affect the return flight. Other times, the reasons were more sentimental. Stepping onto the lunar surface is a hugely impressive feat of human endeavor, and the achievement has been marked by some of the things left on the moon. As Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin began their return journey to Earth, they disposed of anything they didn't need from the lunar surface. This included the tube that the U.S. flag had been rolled up in, TV camera they'd used to send footage back to Earth, and tools they'd used to gather moon rocks and dust. In doing this, they created a toss zone, which lies to the west of the Apollo 11 landing site. It was important to lighten the load as they left the lunar surface. In the Apollo missions that followed, many things were left on the moon, adding up to an estimated, are you ready for this, 400,000 pounds of stuff. What was left behind on the moon? Well, here's one popular one, human waste. There are a total of 96 bags of human waste on the moon. Scientists are keen one day to bring this stuff back to Earth to study how its time on the moon has affected it, but for now, it sits in bags upon the moon's surface. Now here's an interesting one, a family photo. And by the way, if you want to see some of these objects, I do have them listed on the stream. Just go to YouTube and type in DARC Skynet. That's two words, DARC and Skynet, and you'll find the link. You can watch it and follow along. It says here a family photo. Apollo 16 astronaut Charlie Duke left a framed family photo on the moon's surface. On the back it reads, This is the family of astronaut Charlie Duke from planet Earth, who landed on the moon April 20th, 1972. Charles Duke was the youngest person to walk on the moon at age 36 in 1972. Exposure to the radiation from the sun has most likely bleached the photo completely white by this point, but the sentiment stays the same. Best dad ever? He did take his kids to the moon after all. Next is flags. The bleached state, oh, wait a minute here. Guess I typed the same thing in twice. No, this is correct. The bleached fate of Duke's photo is a similar fate to that of many flags left on the moon. Each lunar landing was marked by the planting of a flag, a tradition begun in 1969 by Armstrong and Aldrin during Apollo 11. Although deciding to plant a flag on the moon's surface during Apollo 11 moon landing was made at the last minute, it was one of the most iconic images from the moon landing. All future Apollo missions would follow suit and plant their own flags. Because there's no wind on the moon, the flags would never fly. Therefore, the flags were constructed with extendable metal poles so that when the flags were unfurled, they could be seen. The Apollo 17 flag, planted by Gene Cernan, which is the picture I have up on the stream, had already been to the moon. It was carried in the lunar surface and back on Apollo 11 before being hung on the wall of Mission Control. To replace the flag in the office, a separate flag was taken to the moon during Apollo 17 and returned to the wall of Mission Control. Next is ashes. This is an interesting one. Gene Shoemaker was a U.S. geologist who studied terrestrial craters and discovered many comets and planets. You may remember Shoemaker-Levy, who crashed into the planet Jupiter. When he died, his ashes were transported to the moon in a capsule on board the Lunar Prospector space probe. The capsule, which had been specially designed to be taken to the moon, was a quote from Romeo and Juliet, which reads as follows: "As when he shall die, take him and cut him out in little stars, and he will make the face of heaven so fine that all the world will be in love with night and pay no worship to the garish sun." Shoemaker is the only person to have their ashes flown to the moon. A small art gallery, a tiled moon museum, and I have a picture of this. I did not know this. It's quite interesting. It's about the size of a Lego. It says the titled Moon Museum. This small ceramic wafer, measuring 3/4 of an inch by 1/2 an inch, was created by Forrest Myers. The chip featured tiny artworks from 6 artists, including Klaus Oldenburg, David Nabaros, and Andy Warhol. We know that guy. Although NASA didn't agree to transport the Moon Museum to the moon, Myers told the New York Times he gave it to Apollo 12 engineer who attached it to the leg of the lunar module. I guess it went without people knowing. As the landers are left on the moon after the mission, this tiny piece of artwork is supposedly still on the moon. However, there has been information from NASA that this was actually transported to the moon, and there's no way of knowing for sure, of course, without a return trip, and that it's residing on the lunar surface. A feather and a hammer. In the late 16th century, Galileo Galilei is said to have dropped 2 objects of different masses from the Leaning Tower of Pisa. This experiment was designed to prove that the speed with which they fell was independent of their mass. In 1971, Apollo 15 astronaut David Scott carried out a similar experiment on the moon's surface, crediting Galileo as being instrumental in the achievements of the moon landings. Scott dropped a feather and a hammer at the same time, and the world watched as they fell at the same speed and landed on the lunar surface at the same time. The feather came from Bagan, the Air Force Academy's mascot falcon. I did watch that live on television. It was kind of cool. And indeed, they dropped at exactly the same rate. A fallen astronaut. Left behind by Apollo 15 astronauts, Fallen Astronaut is an aluminum sculpture created by Belgium artist Paul van Hooijdonk. The small sculpture of a human was commissioned by David Scott, mission commander of Apollo 15. Scott claimed that the work was intended to represent the fallen astronaut and Soviet cosmonauts, and it was placed face down next to the plaque listing the names of the 14 people who had lost their lives during service. However, Van Hooijdonk claimed the sculpture was created with the intention of symbolizing all of mankind and not just those who had died during the progress of space exploration. Other memorials. The Apollo 1 mission patch. As well as fallen astronaut, other astronauts have left behind memorials to their colleagues. Armstrong and Aldrin left behind an Apollo 1 mission patch to commemorate the astronauts who had died in 1967 during a test of the command module. The Golden Olive Branch. Apollo 12 astronaut Alan Bean also left behind a golden olive branch to commemorate astronaut Clifton Williams. Williams was meant to be the lunar module pilot on Apollo 12, but died in a plane crash while flying a NASA T-38 jet trainer due to a mechanical failure. That's interesting. I thought I knew a lot, but I did not know that. Interesting. Moon buggies and other equipment. From descent stages to moon buggies, there's plenty of technical equipment that's been left on the moon. Some of the equipment left behind have been used to commemorate the moon landing. On the leg of Apollo 11 descent stage is affixed a plaque which reads, "Here men from the planet Earth first set foot upon the moon, July 1969 AD. We came in peace for all mankind." Now I'll tell you a little story about the series For All Mankind and that plaque after this is done. Another one, astronaut David Scott. Boy, he was busy. Meanwhile, left a Bible behind on the dashboard of the moon buggy, and I have a picture in a circle of where it was left before it left. Golf balls. This one's probably somewhat famous. Alan Shepard managed to get in a game of one-man intergalactic golf during his time on the moon. He smuggled the head of a golf club on board the Apollo 14 mission, attached to it one of the tools, and hit 2 golf balls across the lunar surface. Although a lot of things left behind on the moon may seem to be space junk, studying what has happened to them over time after their exposure to radiation and the conditions of the moon's surface may be one day be able to tell us new things about space. And this is from rmg.co.uk, Stories of Space Astronomy, Space, Strange Things Humans Have Left on the Moon. I was going to tell you a little story just kind of off the cuff. That plaque I was telling you about Apollo 11 is a fairly large plaque, and it was affixed to the side of the ladder leg of the Apollo 11 lunar module, Eagle. There's a series, it's a fictional series about what happened if the Soviets had landed on the moon before Apollo. And this was a series called For All Mankind. It's an interesting series. It's in its 5th season, I think, 5 years. We've reached the years, alternate years, from 1969 to present, or close to it. We're in the 2010s now, and the mission is to go to Titan. The idea was, and the story goes, that we never stopped doing the space race and continued to race the Soviets, and then Russians, and there's still Soviets in this series, out into space. They've gone to Titan now, and this plaque ends up on the surface of Titan, since the plaque was never on Apollo 11, because they were the first ones to land on the moon in this case, which was Alexei Leonov. purported to be the first man to walk on the moon. You remember him as the spacewalker, first man to walk in space. So if you get a chance, watch that series. I think you'll enjoy it. There's a lot of space hardware eye candy and a pretty darn good, compelling story. The final season's next year. I'm not sure when it will be coming out. They just concluded this last season here a few weeks ago. So that's it for me. This is KE5 ICX. I'm Net Control for Skynet this evening. Do you have any questions at this point? Now take additional check-ins. Please come now.
Recheck. This is November 5, Mike Tango Victor, Chad. That's Charlie Hotel Alpha Delta in Garland. Just to recheck, N5MTV.
NV5F, I have a comment.
Kilo Charlie 5, Mike Papa Oscar, Jamie, North Dallas, checking in.
Okay, well, I got three different things here. I hope I got everybody. I got N5 MTV, that's Chad. I've got you down as Chad in Garland. Chad, did you have a comment? I wasn't sure on the recheck.
November 5, Mike Tango Victor, negative, no comment. Just a recheck. N5MTV.
I got you down, and the other check-in was KC5MPO, I think. Could I get your name and location again? My brain froze for a second.
No problem. Kilo Charlie 5, Mike Papa Oscar, Jamie, North Dallas.
All right, thanks. KC5MPO, Jamie, North Dallas. I should know that by now, but I'm a slow learner. And then I had a recheck, NV5F, Virginia. Go ahead.
Thanks, Tom. Very cool topic. I think it was around this time last year I did the article about people speculating about what brand of golf balls that Alan Shepard used on the moon. That was kind of fun. And your comments about some of the other objects led me to remember some of the specific episodes of the show From the Earth to the Moon, which I also highly recommend. And in fact, one of my favorite episodes is the one about Apollo 12 with Alan Bean as sort of the narrator of it. It's very, very fun, and there is actually a reference to C.C. Williams, the astronaut that died. He was supposed to be on that crew, and that was his untimely passing was how Alan Bean was able to be on that crew, and they did talk about making tribute to him. So it's just a really great show. I've watched it so many times, it helps me remember all those little facts like that. So also a fun one, and they also make a reference to the feather and the hammer in that show as well. So anyway, that's all my comments. Back to Net in V5F.
Thank you, Virginia. And yes, one of my favorite series of all time, From the Earth to the Moon, with the Michael Kamen score. Oh, geez, you don't get goosebumps and a little misty-eyed during the opening credits for that series. Not human. Yeah, and the Apollo 12 episode is probably the funniest of the entire series. My favorite is Spider, which came a couple of episodes before. And that's very emotional, but funny. The Apollo 12 episode is great. All right, thank you very much. Let me see. We have. Let me ask if there's any additional check-ins. Give you a chance. If you'd like to join us this evening, have not done so, please come now with your call sign, name, and where you're transmitting from.
Kilo 9, Alpha Hotel Oscar, Brian in Terrell.
right, we picked up K9AHL, Brian and Terrell. Thanks for joining us, Brian. Next is What's Up with Chaz Canton. He's KF5JJ. Chaz, what's up?
Thank you, Tom. Good evening once again, everyone. This is KF5JJ, Chaz. We call this segment of Skynet What's Up because it's all about what has gone on astronomically over the past couple of weeks and what will take place over the next couple of weeks and beyond. That was slide number 2. I'm going to talk about slides. We have a video version of Skynet on YouTube. To get to that, go to W5FC.org and click on the link. So, Slide Master, slide number 3. We've already mentioned it. Today was Moon Day. So that's my introductory slide from Moon Day. But from last year, since I submit my stuff earlier, kind of hard to get it in at the same day as the Skynet that's going on too. Maybe I'll do this year's Moon Day pictures next week. Okay. Slide Master, slide number 4. That's a picture that you're seeing of the Apollo 7 capsule. I know somebody that used to be a docent there that actually talked to people, visitors, about all the stuff that's going on at the Frontiers of Flight Museum. Wonder who that could be. And, of course, that's a picture of the table of the National Space Society. I don't know if Bill was in that picture or not. Anyway, from last year. Slide Master, slide number 5. Moon Day also had tables from the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas and also the Dallas Amateur Radio Club. We've heard about those as well. Wow. I saw some purple things at the DARC table. Oh, Slide Master, slide number 6. We've talked about the predicted nova of the star T Corona Borealis, which could erupt at any time. It is currently at a brightness of around 10th magnitude. I just checked a few minutes ago just to verify that. That is too faint to be seen with just your 2 eyes. Now, T Corona Borealis was supposed to go nova about 2 years ago. One recent prediction was for T Corona Borealis to go nova around June the 25th, plus or minus a couple days. Well, that didn't happen. But when it does go nova, T Corona Borealis could become as bright as the North Star, which is 2nd magnitude. Now, I can see the North Star with just my 2 eyes from my very light polluted location here in Mesquite. Slide Master, slide number 7. This image of the sun was swiped from, I swiped it from spaceweather.com. It was probably taken by the Solar Dynamic Observatory, SDO. The large sunspot complexes on the sun are so large at times that all you have to do is use your solar eclipse glasses to see them. No optical aids other than just to protect your eyes. The sun has passed its 11 years solar maximum, which we believe was right around October of 2024. I presented information on the solar cycle about 6 months ago right here on Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 8. All right, here's a marathon of different things about the moon. New moon was on July the 14th. That's just a few days ago. So the current phase of the moon is a waxing crescent. You could see the evening sky earlier this evening. July 21st is the first quarter moon. On July the 25th, the moon is at apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth at a distance of 405,548 kilometers. Full moon is on July the 29th. Third quarter phase of the moon is on August the 5th. And on August the 10th, the moon is at perigee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 363,284 kilometers. Slide Master, slide number 9. In just a couple of days, on July the 20th, there's a conjunction of the moon and Spica in the southwestern evening sky. Spica is the brightest star in the constellation of Virgo. Slide Master, slide number 10. On July the 24th, there's a conjunction of the moon and the bright star Antares. That's in the constellation of Scorpius in the southern evening sky. Slide Master, slide number 11. On July the 29th, there's a conjunction of the moon and the planet Pluto in the southwestern morning sky. Now, wait a minute. Pluto. Yep, you can't see with your two eyes, can't see with binoculars, and you'd have to have a moderate-sized telescope, and it'd only look like a dot in the field of view. So the best way to look at Pluto is to get a good, accurate star map, point your telescope in the right position, draw all the little dots you see in that field of view, and then go back a couple days later and draw it again, and whatever dot moves, that was probably Pluto. Pretty cool. Slide Master, slide number 12. On the night of July the 29th and 30th, there's the peak of not just one, not just two, but 3 different meteor showers. The Alpha Capricornid meteor shower could produce about a handful of meteors in an hour. The Southern Delta Aquarid meteor shower could produce around 16 meteors per hour. The July Gamma Draconid meteor shower could produce between 10 to sometimes over 100 meteors per hour. Now, usually the best time to observe meteors is the hour before dawn, because that's the side of the Earth that's running into the debris that's left over by comets and asteroids. If you want to get more information about meteors and meteor showers, you can visit the International Meteor Organization at IMO.net or the American Meteor Society at amsmeteors.org. Slide Master, slide number 13. On August the 2nd, there's a conjunction of the moon and the planet Neptune in the morning sky. All right, you'll need a telescope for Neptune. Yep, can't see it without a telescope. And slide number 14, on on August the 3rd, there's a conjunction of the moon and Saturn. Neptune is close by in the eastern morning sky. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 15. Now, do any of you out there in Radio Land have any questions or need a fill on any of the information? Or maybe you just have a general astronomy question. My degree's in astrophysics, I might be able to answer it, or somebody else on the net might be able to do. Come now with your call sign if you have a question or need a fill.
W5GUS.
No, I like your call sign because it's your name. Gus, what's your question?
Okay, thank you, Chaz. Could you repeat the dates for that meteor shower, W5GUS?
All 3 of them take place on July the 29th and 30th, that night. So July 29th and 30th. So that's time to look for them. So there could be quite a few meteors in the sky. Now, how do you know which meteor shower each meteor comes from? Well, what you do is you trace it backwards. They all look like they originate, the meteors from a particular meteor shower look like they originate from a point in outer space. It's an illusion. We talked about that before, but if you trace it back and you get to the origin point for the meteors, that's where you can find out which one of the meteor showers the meteors came from. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Chaz. W5GUS.
Thank you, Gus. So, slide master, slide number 16. So as the moon waned last week, so these words for the segment of Skynet: stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live right now. And until next time, well, actually, I'll be doing another segment on Skynet in a few minutes. Keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet, which is transmitting on the W5FC repeater in Dallas, Texas, on a frequency of 146.88 megahertz. Skynet is also available on Echolink and YouTube. Okay, back to our net control.
All right, thank you, Chaz, and thank you, Gus, and I get to thank Gus again here in a second because he's up next for space exploration and space history. So, Gus, W5GUS W5US. What do you have for us this week from KE5 ICX?
Thank you, Tom. W5GUS. Several interesting things this week on space exploration and development and history and birthdays. First, we'll start with something July 16th. Bill mentioned this over on TechNet a little earlier, preceding this net. But the SpaceX Mega Starship rocket came within a second or so from blasting off on a test flight Thursday, July 16th. But some of the engines failed to ignite, triggering a launch abort amid billowing clouds of smoke and vapor. Elon Musk, the company's founder and CEO, said 2 engines will be replaced, quote, to be confident of a good flight before sending Starship from Texas on a space-skimming journey halfway around the world. It will be the 13th flight for Starship, which at a little over 400 feet tall, with 33 main engines, is the world's biggest and most powerful rocket when they all work. Okay, July 15th, NASA selected 41 commercial technology proposals from 37 American small businesses to support the Artemis program. These projects will receive funding to develop lunar power distribution networks, automated landing sensors, and systems to mitigate the abrasive effects of lunar dust on space suits. So that should be pretty interesting. Okay, and July the 9th, mission controllers at Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Lab successfully commanded NASA's New Horizons spacecraft to wake from a year-long hibernation period. The probe is currently flying through the outer Kuiper belt, more than 5 billion miles from Earth. Wake-up operations will allow the probe to resume collecting data on the Kuiper belt environment. Okay, we'll move over to space-related birthdays. Let's see. Okay, July 12th, 1957. Rick Husband was born July 12th, 1957. He piloted STS-96, the first space shuttle mission to dock with the International Space Station. He later commanded STS-107, tragically losing his life alongside his crew when Space Shuttle Columbia disintegrated during atmospheric re-entry. Okay, July 13th, 1950, George Nelson was born. He conducted 2 spacewalks during STS-41C to capture, repair, and redeploy the malfunctioning Solar Maximum mission satellite. He also flew on STS-26, the vital return to flight mission following the Challenger disaster. July 14th, 1936, Robert Overmyer was born. He piloted the historic STS-5 mission in 1982, which marked the first fully operational flight of the Space Shuttle program. He later commanded the STS-51B Space Lab mission, supervising complex scientific experiments in microgravity. July 15th, 1982, Alexander Grebenkin was born. July 15th, 82. He launched to the International Space Station aboard a SpaceX Crew Dragon spacecraft in March March 2024. During his 6-month stay, he served as a flight engineer and participated in numerous scientific experiments. Okay, July 17th, 1959. Janet Kevandi was born. She flew on STS-91, which was the final space shuttle mission to dock with the Russian space station. She later flew on STS-99 to map the Earth's surface and STS-104 to install the Quest joint airlock on the International Space Station. Okay, July 18th, 1921, a guy by the name of John Glenn was born. July 18th, 1921. He became a legendary national figure in 1962 as the first American to orbit the Earth aboard Friendship 7. He later returned to space in 1998 aboard STS-95 at the age of 77, becoming the oldest person to fly in space at that time. Also born on July 18th, 1973, John Quesada was born. He launched into the International Space Station as pilot of the SpaceX Crew 5 mission, spending 157 days in orbit. And during his stay, he conducted 3 spacewalks to install new solar arrays on the station's exterior. All right, let's move into this week in space history. Interesting things happened this week in space history. Soviet Union, on July 13th, 1969, Soviet Union launched the robotic Luna 15 spacecraft on a lunar sample return mission. The launch took place just 3 days before the U.S. launched Apollo 11, setting up a dramatic space race. Luna 15 entered lunar orbit ahead of Apollo 11, aiming to land, collect soil, and return to Earth before the American crew could return. Unfortunately, during its landing descent on July 21st, the robotic probe crashed into the moon. But despite the failure, the mission remains a historic example of intense Cold War competition in space exploration. Okay, July 14th, 1965, NASA Mariner 4 spacecraft performed the first successful close flyby of Mars. The robotic probe flew within a little over 6,000 miles from the Martian surface, capturing and transmitting the first close-up photos of another planet. The 21 images returned by the spacecraft reveal its cratered moon-like terrain, shattering popular science fiction hopes of advanced life, or cheese. Mariner 4 also provided critical data showing a thin atmosphere composed mainly of carbon dioxide and a lack of planetary magnetic field. This historic flyby revolutionized planetary science and set the stage for subsequent orbital and surface missions to Mars. Okay, a test project happened on July 15, 1975. The U.S. and Soviet Union launched their respective spacecraft to begin the historic Apollo-Soyuz test project. An American Apollo capsule and a Soviet Soyuz capsule lifted off launch pads on opposite sides of the globe on the same day. This joint mission was designed to test a specialized docking module that allowed the two historically incompatible spacecraft to link up. The flight represented the first international crewed spaceflight and was a major symbol of détente between the two superpowers. It successfully laid the political and technical groundwork that eventually led to the Shuttle Mirror program and the International Space Station, which we all enjoy these days. Okay, the historic Apollo 11 mission launched from NASA's Kennedy Space Center, on July 16th, 1969. It launched aboard a massive Saturn V rocket. The spacecraft carried astronauts Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, Michael Collins on the first human landing mission to the moon. Liftoff occurred at 9:32 a.m. and in front of an estimated 1 million spectators gathered along the Florida coastline. The three-stage Saturn V rocket performed flawlessly, placing the spacecraft and crew into low Earth parking orbit before initiating trans-lunar injection. This flight fulfilled President John Kennedy's national goal of landing humans on the moon and returning them safely before the decade's end. Okay, July 18th, NASA of 1966, July 1866, NASA launched the Gemini 10 spacecraft, carrying astronauts John Young, Michael Collins into Earth orbit. The primary objectives of the mission were to conduct rendezvous and docking maneuvers with two separate Agena target vehicles. Young and Collins successfully docked with their primary target, using its engine to propel Gemini 10 to a record altitude of 476 miles. Collins also completed two successful extravehicular activities, retrieving a micrometeoric collection package from the second target vehicle. The three-day mission demonstrated the advanced orbital maneuvering and spacewalk capabilities crucial for the upcoming Apollo lunar program. And that does it for this week on this item, this topic. So we will pass the net back to Tom, net control, and look forward to some nice jokes coming up from Chaz. So back to you, Tom, W5GUS.
Thank you, Gus, for all of that information. And indeed, that is correct. We're moving on to Chaz again. This time, Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. So, Chaz, K5JJ, go right ahead.
Tom, this is Chaz, KF5JJ, Slide Master, slide number 17. By the way, our Slide Master is Tom, so thank you. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent Key. Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week from its beginning in 2012. Yep, we are in our 16th year of Skynet until May of 2019 with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year out of the 88 total number of constellations. So Ms. Carolyn covered the entire sky as seen over North Texas in a year. In her honor, we've continued that tradition of a constellation each week and named this segment after her. Ms. Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week is Hercules, the strongman. Didn't get to do it last week. We sort of ran out of time, but we're going to do it now. Hercules is the son of the gods Zeus and a mortal mother. He is best known for his 12 labors, which was an almost impossible list of things that he was required to do. Hera, who had tried to kill Hercules ever since he was born, induced a madness in him, and that made him kill his wife and children. So Hercules went to the Oracle of Delphi to atone. He prayed to the god Apollo for guidance and was told to serve the king Argos for 10 years. During that time, he spent his time performing a series of 12 different difficult tasks called labors. To this day, almost any impossible task is called a Herculean task. And slide master, slide number 18, the jokes of the week. Thank you, Gus, for the introduction to the jokes of the week. That's it. By the way, these are all related to the constellation of the week. Here we go. Why is Hercules the most suitable midwife out of all the demigods? Because he's already been through 12 labors. Get it? Get it? 12? Oh, well. What do you call a female Hercules? Hercules. No, maybe that wasn't that funny. What would you call Hercules if he were one of the 7 dwarfs? Would you call him Hercules? What is Hercules' favorite car? Mercedes. Okay, just a couple more left. Everyone cheered when Hercules cleaned the Aegean stables. That's one of his 12 labors. And what would you fill in the blank with after that? Everyone except the people living downstream. He diverted it. Well, never mind. And the final joke for the week. What motivated Hercules to face against the Cerberus? You know, like the molly-headed thing. Someone triple dog dared him. That's the best one, I think. Slide master, slide number 19. Let's talk about a few stars. SZ Hercules is a variable star that ranges in brightness from a magnitude of about 10.2 down to a magnitude of 12. SZ Hercules brightness cycle repeats about every 16 hours. So you can collect a good amount of the brightness curve in a single night of observing. SZ Hercules variability arises from the fact that it's a spectroscopic binary system, so one star goes in front of the other one and vice versa. S Hercules is another variable star, but with a much longer period of 307 days. S Hercules varies in brightness from magnitude 5.9 down to magnitude 13.6, which is really faint. Alpha Hercules, another star, Ras Algesi, translates to the head of the kneeler. Burnham's Celestial Handbook notes that Hercules is often depicted as kneeling in the act of stringing his great bow. Alpha Hercules is a beautiful double star with a reddish gold primary star and a bluish secondary star. It sort of looks like a miniature Alberio in the sky. And if you don't know what Alberio is, we'll talk about that sometime in the future. Slide master, slide number 20. Messier object number 13, it's also known as NGC 6205, is the Great Globular Cluster of Hercules, the finest globular cluster north of the celestial equator, discovered by Edmund Halley. Yep, the guy that talked about the comet. Yep, in 1714. He first mentioned it in astronomical writings by him the following year. Though M13 is visible to the unaided eye, the fact that it was not a single star was not apparently recognized until Halley. Halley himself first noted that the cluster shows itself to be a naked-eye object when in the sky, when the moon is absent. Messier himself thought that if M13 was a nebula in with a bright center, as his telescope was kind of small and he couldn't resolve it into stars, but it is stars. If we were living inside M13, the appearance of the sky would be spectacular, with incomparable splendor. The heavens would be filled with uncountable numbers of stars blazing at a brightness that would be between the brightness of Sirius, Canopus, and Venus. Many thousands of stars ranging in brightness between Venus and even as bright as the full moon would be continually visible. So there could really be no night sky at all on that planet if you lived in the globular star cluster of M13. Slide Master, slide number 21. There's another M object in Hercules, M92. It's Hercules' other Messier object. Robert Burnham Jr. notes that M92 is a beautiful, rich cluster, which almost in any other constellation would be considered a major show object. In Hercules, it's been somewhat overshadowed by the splendor of M13. M92, like M13, is easily visible in binoculars or even a finder scope. Eagle-eyed Stephen James Amira, in his book, The Messier Objects, note that he can see M92 without optical aid, and on one night he discovered that he could see both M13 and M92 globular clusters simultaneously with the unaided eye. M92 is notably smaller than M13. Look at one of them in your telescope without changing the eyepieces and flew over to the other one, you'll see the size difference. M92 is a bright, dense core, and it appears sort of oval in shape, slightly elongated from north to south. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 22. Now there's a few more astronomically observing program objects in the constellation of Hercules, the Strongman. I've given you just a sampling of some of those. The Astronomical League has, at last count, 96 different observing programs. Now, most of them have about 100 objects in them. There's a few exceptions. If you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pin in about a year from the Astronomical League. Slide Master, slide number 23. And that is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Hercules the Strongman. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for the research and words on deep sky objects that I use and I borrow and I steal from them every Skynet. Also use at times the website constellation-guide.com for some information. Now next week we'll take a look at a different constellation, Serpent, the snake. There's something interesting about him. There's two pieces of him and they're not connected. We'll talk about why. This is called a teaser and next week's Skynet. This is KF5JJ saying 73. Back to our net control. Tom, it's all up to you.
Thank you, Chad. Thanks for your presentation this evening. This is KE5ICX net control for tonight's Skynet. All right, let me see. Let me do this. Let me go ahead and see if there's additional check-ins at this point before I move to the final two segments this evening. If you'd like to, well, potentially the final two, additional check-ins, please come now with your call sign name, where you're transmitting from. Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and continue on. The next segment is launch schedules coming up, space flights that maybe in the next few weeks, space launches. The first one I'm going to mention is July 20th, Starship Flight 13. This was scrubbed earlier this week from our announcements earlier. It says here that this SpaceX Starship Super Heavy rocket, collectively referred to as Starship, will launch from Starbase, Texas, on a suborbital test flight. As on the previous flight, the Super Heavy booster, number 20, and Starship Upper Stage, ship 40, will not be recovered, but will attempt controlled splashdowns in the Gulf of Mexico and Indian Ocean, respectively. Starship will deploy 20 V3 Starlink satellites for a brief suborbital test. This was aborted from the July 16th due to engine failure, which we mentioned earlier. July 21st will be a launch of the Falcon 9. This will be from SLC 40 at Cape Canaveral in Florida. Northrop Grumman's Mission Robotic Vehicle, or MRV, and Mission Extension Pods, a robotic space servicing mission. The first stage will be expended on this mission. The first stage booster will be expended on this mission, meaning that it will not return for reuse. July 24th, Falcon 9 Starlink 17-51 will launch from SLC-4E at Vandenberg. Another batch of 24 Starlink V2 mini satellites from low Earth orbit. The first stage booster will return for the 26th time to a drone ship. Of course, I still love it to go. Starlink 1752 will also launch from SLC-4E. Same basic thing, except the first stage will be returning for the 26th time on the land on the drone ship. Next up to be determined, Spectrum will be launched onward and upward. This will be from Launch Complex Adoya Spaceport in Norway. The Spectrum rocket from IZAR Aerospace will launch its second test flight. Two-stage rocket carrying 5 CubeSats. I won't name them because they're very tongue-tying twists, but these are all academic satellites that will launch about the size of a ship. Their team, Exo Launch, is responsible for managing the payload integration and deployment of all these satellites, and there are a bunch of them. We have in late summer to be determined Flight Aid 008. This will be from Vandenberg, SLC-2. This will be the Firefly Aerospace Alpha rocket will launch on a mission for a yet unannounced customer. This will be a debut of the Block 2 iteration of the rocket, which features larger liquid oxygen tanks on both the first and second stages, increasing the overall length of the rocket by 2 meters. We also have, let me see here, I'll give you both of these. We have Falcon 9 launch, a Global Star 2R Launch 1 from SLC-40 at Cape Canaveral. This will be a launch of 9 HIB LEO-4 satellites into low Earth orbit. 8.5 minutes after launch, the Falcon 9 first stage booster will return for the 12th time and land on the drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas. It doesn't give a description of what this is about. It's a replenishment of the high HIB LEO-4 fleet, but no explanation as to what those are. Oh, we have coming up as soon will be the Boeing Starliner 1. Are you ready for this? This is to be determined flying on an Atlas V. The United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket will launch Boeing CST-100 Starliner spacecraft to the International Space Station. Originally planned as the first post-certification flight for a 4-person crew, this will instead be an uncrewed cargo flight to test changes in the vehicle made in the aftermath of the crewed flight test of launched in 2024. Boy, they will not give this program up. It's probably going to be operational by the time the space station is not. I don't know what they're going to do, but they're not doing it very well. Boeing needs to get their act together. That's my personal opinion. Okay, next up is visible satellite passages over the next couple of days. The International Space Station has a number of them. I'm only going to list a few. We have on July 21st, a minus 1.3 magnitude, 2311 in the morning, evening, I should say, 2311 in the evening, local time. It reaches its highest point at 22 degrees at 2312, and it'll fall to the north at 2312. That'll go into shadow. Minus 1. It'll fall to the northeast at 2226. The first, skip through some of these. These are all similar passes at the same time from July 20th through 23rd. July 24th is an excellent pass. This is the one that really you want to look at. Minus 3.4 magnitude, very bright. At 22:25 in the evening out of the northwest, it'll reach its highest point at 59 degrees at 22:28. Then it'll fall to the north-northeast at 22:28. All of these passes do go into shadow about mid-8 or mid-pass. That's okay. You still get a very good view. Finally, July 26th, this one also 22:26 in the evening. It'll reach its highest point at 30 degrees at 2229, and it'll fall to the west-southwest at 2229. And finally, July 27th, same thing. This is the brightest one of them all, minus 3.6 magnitude. That's at 2139 out of the northwest. Reach its highest point at 2142 at 67 degrees, and it'll fall to the south-southeast at 2144. If out of all the passes, that's probably the one you really want to see on July 27th. The Tiangong space station has two passes I think are pretty good. July 20th at minus 2.3 magnitude at 2209 out of the west-northwest at reach its highest point at 81 degrees at 2113. It'll fall to the southeast at 2213. Again, this one also falls into shadow mid-transit. And then the second one that you want to see is July 21st, minus 1.7 magnitude at 2113. Again, late evening, or mid-evening, I should say. At 2116, it reaches its highest point at 57 degrees, and it'll fall to the east-southeast at 2119. That's a pretty good pass all the way across, minus 1.7 magnitude. You can get all this information from heavens-above.com. Just plug in your city or your longitude and latitude, whatever you see fit, and you'll be able to get all this information, as well as amateur satellite passes as well. No Kuiper information required, just your location on Earth. Okay, we do have a few minutes. Are there any questions from tonight's net, for tonight's net and presenters? If you have something you'd like to bring, it could be anything, astronomical or otherwise, please come with your call now. Are there any final check-ins?
Kilo Juliet 5, Quebec Echo India in Carrollton.
Okay, we got KJ5QEI in Carrollton. Can I get your name?
That's KJ5QEI. My name is Patrick.
All right, very good. Patrick, appreciate you checking in this evening, and stick around if you'd like to join us for Skynet. That's not Skynet, Afterglow Movie Net. That's coming up in a few minutes. Okay, well, with that, we'll go ahead and close out the net. Tonight we had 17 check-ins, not too bad. We have to compete with the normal weather. Participating in the net, that includes myself. Thanks to all of you. And we hope you join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration and explanation on this net. The sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the DARC nets. If you'd like to try your hand at a net control, contact any of the net controls currently on air by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics, discussions on this net, astronomy in general, by going to Facebook and X, as well as YouTube if you want to check out the video archives. We go back 15 years, so if you want to see me when I was young and had hair, you can go back that far and see. It's kind of frightening. Until next Saturday night, this is Kilo Echo 5 India Charlie X-Ray Tom, and I'll be closing the net at 22:29 local time, returning the repeater to normal amateur use at least for about
I'm completely operational, and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow Movie Net, the universe. But come back in 5 minutes for the Afterglow Movie Net. We'll be talking about the movie Near Dark from 1987, a Oklahoma vampire movie. Yeah, I guess they exist there too. See you then. This is KE5 ICX clear for now.
KE5 ICX, this is KF5JHA.
For JHA, that would be Jazz.
I was talking to Virginia earlier today at Moon Day, and I was wondering if we've had K-Pax as a movie on the Afterglow.
Thinking of the Gene Roddenberry separatist group in that made-for-TV movie from 1972, but I can't remember the name of it right now. Earth 2, I think. I would have a tendency to think, no, we have not.
This one is a much more recent movie about a guy in an institute that said things were coming on a particular date, and they did come.
Looking it up now. Oh wait, this is the one with Kevin Spacey. We did see this movie. It's been a long time ago, but yeah, we did see this film. I don't know. I'd have to go back and see if I could even find it, but it may be as much as years ago we saw this film, or something. I don't know. However long we've been doing. I think it was one of the first ones we did. But it's always good for a second viewing.
I just thought it would be a good one. Okay, thank you. KF5JJ clear.
Good deal. I'll put it on the list right now. Yeah, I think that would be a good one to watch. All right, I'm clear for another 5 minutes or so. This is KE5ICX. Okay, come on back. Hopefully you got your microwave popcorn and you're sitting down for probably around 90 minutes of discussion of tonight's Afterglow movie called Near Dark. By the way, if you're listening for the first time and you would like to check in, you're by all means welcome to do so. How you know about the movie ahead of time? Well, what you need to do is send an email to me, KE5ICX, Kilo Echo 5 India Charlie X-Ray, that's the call sign at yahoo.com, and say I want to be on the list, and I'll send you the link. All the movies are free, usually with ads or something, streaming for free. And they are usually older films, but not necessarily. They can be recent as long as they are free. We're cheap. We like being cheap. Be aware that some of these movies aren't very good. Others are excellent. Which one will you determine the film to be? That's up to you. Anyway, here we go. Let me read you a little bit about Near Dark. I did not know about this film until it was recommended for this net. Near Dark is a 1981 American neo-Western horror film co-written and directed by Kathryn Bigelow in her sole directorial debut, starring Adrian Pastar, Jenny Wright, Bill Paxton, Lance Henriksen, and Jeanette Goldstein. The plot follows a young man in a small Oklahoma town who becomes involved with a family of nomadic American vampires. They performed poorly at the box office. Critic reviews were generally positive. Over the years, the film has gained a cult following, as was the person who announced their love of this film and suggested it for this evening. Okay, here we go. One night, Kalen Colton, a young man in a small Oklahoma town, meets an attractive young drifter named May. Before sunrise, she bites him on the neck and runs off. The rising sun causes Kalen's flesh to smoke and burn. He arrives with a group of roaming vampires in an RV and takes him away. The most psychotic of the vampires, Severin, wants to kill Caleb, but May reveals that she's already turned him. Their charismatic leader, Jesse Hooker, reluctantly agrees to allow Caleb to remain with them for a week to see if he can hunt and gain the group's trust. Caleb is unwilling to kill to feed. She alienates him from the others. To protect him, May kills for him and then has him drink from her wrist. Jesse's group enters a bar and kills the occupants. They set the bar on fire and flee the scene. All except May want to kill Caleb after he endangers them by letting only the only living occupant escape. After Caleb endangers himself to help them escape their motel room during the daylight police raid, Jesse and the others are grateful and temporarily mollified. Camaraderie commences, and Caleb asking Jesse how old he is, and Jesse responding that he fought for the South during the American Civil War, in case you were wondering, making him 150 years old. Severin had earlier suggested he and Jesse started the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. Meanwhile, Caleb's father has been searching for Jesse's group. The child vampire in the group, Homer, meets Caleb's sister Sarah and wants to turn her into his companion, but Caleb objects. When the group argues, Caleb's father arrives and holds him at gunpoint, demanding that Sarah be released. Jesse taunts him into shooting him, then regurgitates the bullet before wrestling the gun away. In the conclusion, Sarah opens the door, letting in the sunlight and forcing the vampires back. Burning, Caleb escapes with his family. Caleb suggests they try giving him a blood transfusion. Transfusion unexpectedly reverses Caleb's transformation. That night, the vampires search for Caleb and Sarah. May distracts Caleb by trying to persuade him to return to her while the others kidnap the sister. Caleb discovers the kidnapping and his tires slash, but gives chase on horseback. When he shies and throws him, he is confronted by Severin. Caleb commandeers a trailer tractor and runs Severin over. The injured vampire suddenly appears on the hood of the truck, Mad Max style, and manages to rip apart the wiring of the engine. Caleb jackknifes the vehicle and jumps out as the truck explodes, killing Severin. Seeking revenge, Jesse and his girlfriend Diamondback pursue him, but are forced to escape in their car as dawn breaks. Attempting to save Sarah, May breaks out of the back of the car with her. May's flesh begins to smoke as she is burned by the sun, but she carries Sarah into Caleb's arms. Taking refuge under his jacket, Homer attempts to follow, but as he runs, he dies from exposure to the sun. Their sun-proofing ruined, Jesse and Diamondback also begin to burn. They attempt to run Caleb over, but fail, dying as the car blows up. May awakes later, her burns now healed. She too has been given a transfusion and is cured. May says she is afraid. Caleb pulls her into a hug to comfort her as the film ends. The end. The only time I ever saw this sort of thing was in episodes of Dark Shadows from the 1970s, early 70s. Transfusions did the same thing. I don't know if that's a thing or not, where it devampirizes you. How does blood devampirize you? I thought blood was what made you. I don't know. I'm confused. Okay. This is how the game is played. I'm going to go ahead and take check-ins. I'll ask you for your name, your call sign, your name, and did you see the film? Not seeing the film does not disqualify you. You can talk about anything you like, including any other vampire films, of which there were many that came out during this time, or something about the description I just gave you that you thought, huh? Or, either one of those. You're more than welcome to check in. Everyone else, same thing. Please come in with your call sign, your name, where you're transmitting from. The next round will be talking about the plot, followed by characterization and acting, followed by special effects and anything else you'd like to talk about. And that's about 90 minutes long. So let's go ahead and get started. Please come in your call sign, name, and did you see tonight's movie, Near Dark from 1987.
This is N5DB, November 5, Bravo, Bill and Irving. Yes, I saw this movie.
This is November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony and Dallas. Yes, I have seen this movie. That says Aaron.
Oh, this is a slow start. I've got N5DB, Bill and Irving. Yes, he saw the film. NT5TM, Tony and Dallas. Yes, he saw the film. Additional check-ins, please. Well, it may be a short net this evening. Maybe we'll have some stragglers coming along. I'll go ahead and start with you two. That may be it. We'll just see what happens. So, Bill, N5DB. Bill, what did you think about the plot for tonight's film?
Well, thank you, Tom. This is N5DB. Well, I had mixed thoughts. I kind of wanted to like the plot and the general outline of it. I was really bothered by the level of the depravity of some of the vampires. I just did not understand why they had to be so evil. So that's one thing that bothered me. Another thing that bothered me is the movie made absolutely no attempt to explain at all this phenomenon. They didn't give it a name. I mean, surely the characters in this must have heard about vampire legends and things, and Dracula movies. I don't remember them mentioning that one time. I don't remember them saying the word undead. And they just kind of, like you mentioned, hinted around at how old they were. Early in the movie, the woman protagonist lady was staring out at the stars, and the way I understood her, she said, it may have taken either, she said, millions or billions of years for that light to get to us, and she kind of acted like she might be alive that far in the future or something. But later on, there's a mention of like the Chicago fire, and then the Civil War. And so it's a little vague, and I'm not really sure what to think about how they really are. So I'm not saying they have to give us a detailed explanation of the physics involved, but to me they needed a little bit more folklore or something, pseudoscience, something to kind of explain it. Just a bit. I wanted a bit. So that bothered me a bit about the plot. It's like it purposely, they just weren't going to go there. And they were going to concentrate on showing us the horrible acts these people would do, and, not show us anything about why. And I think they concentrated, as far as the plot goes, too much on all these horrendous acts they were doing, and they could have, gone a little further, talking about something like, what did they get from this? What did they think about, being indestructible? Although, were they really indestructible? They kind of gave you the idea when everything blew up that did destruct one of them. They were a little bit weird about the indestructibility part of it. So I don't know. I wanted to like the movie because of, I guess, kind of how it started and how it ended. But I was bothered by, as I mentioned, missing things in the plot and the focus on the horrible acts that they did. Hope that explains my feeling about it, Tom. I am torn. Inside BB, back to now.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. I took some notes on what you said. I have a tendency to agree with you on that, and you came through loud and clear on that one. I don't disagree. Next up is Tony, NT5PM. Tony, your thoughts on the plot for tonight's movie, Near Dark, from 1987.
Yeah, I'm sad this movie seems to have scared people off, because something that a lot of vampire movies tend to forget about it, with, the musical comedy of The Lost Boys, or the, sexy, pretty vampires of Interview with the Vampire, is the vampires are supposed to be evil monsters. You're supposed to be afraid of them. They might represent disease or moral depravity or decay, but they're not supposed to be pretty, when we're not supposed to like them. Now, a background note of the plot, of course, all movie vampires are thermodynamically impossible. Blood is a very low-calorie meal, and the hundreds of extra murders necessary to sustain even a small group of vampires for a year would just attract a tremendous amount of attention in any community. I mean, how many people die on the original Silent Nosferatu, basically an entire German city, from just one of these monsters? So I do have to suspend my disbelief on that. One of the tensions that I enjoyed in this movie is the just extreme contrast between this movie and the vastly more successful musical vampire comedy, The Lost Boys. Yes, the vampires in The Lost Boys do kill, although never as explicitly as this. But Michael is never, one of the protagonists is never really tempted to become one of the undead. Yes, they try to make it look like fun, and they stay up all night and they party a lot, but they don't ever seriously seem like a family or a culture or a group that works together. They don't really, I don't know. I think that Caleb really was confused and tempted here. As Corey Haim said in The Lost Boys, the vampires in this movie really do have one big, happy, blood-sucking family. They're the Mansons. They care about one another. He's attracted to May, but as she says, the night has its price. Santa Carla and the Lost Boys' bustling rural Oklahoma is empty, underpopulated, and very, very boring. Meeting one of your friends at the gas station is like a big deal. So yeah, this movie is full of fear and tension. That scene where the vampires are slowly killing everyone in the bar and psychologically torturing them is awful, and it's frightening. And I compare that to the, grandpa showing up playing La Cucaracha on his horn, and it's like, this is a horror movie. This is supposed to be scary. Yeah, I'll mention this later if we even go on long enough to get to the music. The music annoyed me the first time I saw this movie. I eventually got used to it, but I was really drawn into this movie because I found that there was a lot of fear and tension. Did I want Caleb to join the vampires? The vampires clearly want him to. He feels some confusion over this. He wants to be happy. He wants to be with May. He wants to not be lonely anymore. But by becoming a mass murderer, I don't think he wants to live 1 billion years just to spend the whole time killing random strangers. This plot does feature some tropes from other movies. I think the most obvious recurring one is random explosions. I have seen trucks jackknife without exploding before. It's just, things just don't explode. The movie From Dusk Till Dawn, yet another vampire comedy, the vampires explode when sunlight hits them. I don't know if they got that from this movie, but yeah, it's what happens in a movie made many years later. We get to see a vampire claw its way up the hood of a truck like it was Mad Max or Terminator 2000. May chooses mortality, or has mortality thrust upon her, perhaps, like Arwen from The Lord of the Rings. Erin did like, one thing she did remember from this movie, she has a very low tolerance for camp, so after I made her watch The Lost Boys, we saw this and The Hunger, and she liked these two much better. She did like that they drove around in a series of blacked out vehicles. They didn't just fly or teleport somewhere. Another thing in the plot that didn't work for me was actually from the Arabian Nights. Scheherazade, of course, wants to stay alive, and she tells all these episodic stories, like the vampires have these episodes of violence. But then near the end of each story, we have the phrase in Arabic, and then dawn overtook Scheherazade. So the king has to let her live another day to see what happens next. These vampires seem to have a really bad sense of time and no alarm clocks. They keep getting surprised by dawn, except for May in the first part of the movie. And finally, yeah, I agree with, I'm sure, Tom and Bill and countless movie critics. Those transfusions really should not have worked. I mean, that's like giving me a ham sandwich, right? That's what I eat. Vampires eat blood. So I really wonder if there was something that was supposed to be implied there. Is it the giving the blood out of kindness that makes the difference versus violent depravity? I wonder if that's what we're meant to pick up from that, not the technology, but the difference that it was a gift. I don't know. Maybe that was too subtle and I'm reading too much into it, but that's what I wonder about the end of the movie. NC5TM, back to net.
All right, thank you, Tony. Thanks for the synopsis and the comments. All very interesting, and I took notes on you, too. Does anyone else want to check in? Tonight's movie is called Near Dark from 1987. It's one of those re-imaging vampire stories, American vampire stories, which was rife at the time. There were a lot of vampire movies that came out during the mid to late 1980s. And you can talk about that if you'd like. Perfectly fine. Do we have additional check-ins? Please come now. With your call sign name, did you see tonight's movie, Near Dark from 1987?
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean Fort Worth. Yes, I did see this movie.
Okay, we picked up another. We got Sean, KB9SOK. I think maybe part of our light check-ins this evening, maybe because of Moon Day today. I'm not sure how many people showed up and went there. That was always one of my regulars, but it's not possible anymore, so that may be it. But I had a wonderful accidental 3-hour nap this afternoon. That is exceedingly rare for me, so I'm rather awake rather than kind of all tired out. 3 hours. How is that possible? I had to rush to get stuff done that I usually have done by midday. Okay, Sean, KB9SOK, tell us your thoughts on Near Dark from 1987, plot-wise.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. I actually took a little nap myself today. Not 3 hours, about an hour, but, you know, hey, naps sometimes are quite good. Also, too, I love the audio tonight. You're sounding really good tonight, Tom. Much better. Don't change it. So, yeah, this movie, I guess, I actually agree with Bill to some extent, and then I also agree with Tony to some extent. I kind of fall in between. I do agree with Tony that vampires should be bad. I don't like the sparkly vampires, the vampires that are your best friend. Yes, no, vampires are supposed to be bad. But the difference is, I always think vampires are supposed to be in the shadows and sneaky. These vampires, which I do agree with Bill, were kind of out there, and if they caused that much destruction every single night, I would have think they would have got caught way before, especially in the modern era with modern-day police and radios and what have you. Yes, maybe in the 1800s, they could have probably very easily got away. So yeah, but a lot of movies make this mistake, especially in the 80s. Lots of destruction and people never get caught. So, yeah. So yeah, I had a little bit of trouble with that part of the plot myself. And for me, the other big thing it wasn't so much the ending of the transfusion. I have seen that one other time before, and it might have been what Tom had mentioned. But for me, I didn't like the way they ended it as far as wrapping everything up quickly. You know, we had our bad vampires chasing them. They've been so careful to protect themselves even in vehicles. You know, and then here at the end, they very easily just kind of give up. You got the guy that runs out after the girl. He knew that it was going to kill him being in the sun. I mean, why? There's no way he could have fell in love with that little girl. You know, and then the quote-unquote mom and dad in the car, you know, why did they crawl in the back of the car and pull off the side of the road? You know, why were they so willing to give up their lives just to try to kill that guy? They knew what was going to happen. After all, they've been vampires for a couple hundred years. So that part, I thought was kind of lame. I would have liked to have seen some way of tricking them out into the light, or I just would have liked that ending to be a little cleaner, or a little more sense, I guess. And then, yes, the other thing I agree with Tony, it's like, do the people not pay attention to the time? You know, after they brought the father into the hotel room, it was completely black. And I got the impression that only a few minutes had passed when, you know, the door opened up and then almost all the sun was out. So maybe I just blanked out there, but it seemed strange that it went from dark to light so fast. Maybe they did indicate that they've been there for a while. I may have missed that. So yeah, there's a couple of strange plot points here that just didn't make sense. Definitely felt like an 80s movie. For me, this one was kind of strange too. I kind of felt parts of it I kind of like, parts of it I didn't. This reminds me a little bit of the movies, back in the late 70s, early 80s, and even into almost in the 90s. I used to very much enjoy what I would call B movies. We've had many of those on here. Used to love to watch them on Friday nights. When they had the double feature, and would watch them and kind of enjoyed these cheesy. And this one kind of fell in between. It was like it was almost trying to be a more serious vampire movie, but yet it was almost felt like a B movie classic. Like you didn't know if it wanted to be over the top ridiculous or maybe be serious. I don't know on this one. It was kind of a strange one. So I can't really real sure how to rate this one. I'm glad I watched it. I'm not sure that I'd watch it again, but I'm glad I watched it. So yeah, a little bit of an odd review tonight on this one. So anyway, not much else to add. Back net, KB9SOK.
All right, thank you, John. I think you hit upon my feelings about the film, too. Anyone else want to join us this evening? Any latecomers? Tonight's movie is Near Dark, a vampire film from 1987. An Oklahoma vampire film, which I think was all the rage in 1987. Anyone else want to join us? Please come now. Okie dokie. Well, I guess this is our quorum for this evening. My thoughts on the film. It was mentioned, I think Bill mentioned this, and I absolutely agree with him. This is the first thing that I wrote down was reckless. How is it that a 150-plus-year-old vampire manages to stay alive for 150 years and then blow it all up with being reckless? If this is their MO, is to cause havoc and discontinuity in, I don't know, Oklahoma or wherever they were, this was the way to do it and get wiped out. It didn't seem to be any sort of coherent plan. I did like the idea of the RV. I love that. That was great when the RV shows up. It's got the bicycle on the back for the kids and everything. And who else? A band of roving Oklahoma vampires riding around in an RV. What a great idea. And then it's all dark on the inside so that they can travel during the day if they need to, and everything closed up. It kind of had a Mad Max vibe to it. What would you do if you couldn't travel during the day, but you had to keep on the move, to keep in front of the law? You have an RV. Well, then they dump it and they go to other vehicles to keep from being tailed, and that's okay, but I still like the RV idea. If they kept that all the way through, I'm not sure it would have been possible. That would have been great. What a hilarious thing to do. The only thing missing was coffins on the inside. Now, that would have been cool, coffin bunks would have been rather appropriate. And what do? While you're riding, you play, I don't know, look for your prey, go park near the bar that you're going to be at overnight and all of that. I thought that would be great. That would be the kind of thing that would work. Let's see. One of the things they did pick up on, and I'm sure everyone else did too, and it was obvious, I guess, with all the cowboy stuff, is it was really a Western, a reworked Western. And I was fine with that. One thing about vampire films, and it's even mentioned in the notes here on Wikipedia about Near Dark, is that reinterpretation of vampires seems to come up every once in a while. And so it's a wonderfully ripe, if you pardon the pun, topic. The original story is wonderful in that how does, an ordinary person turn into a creature of the night, and how does one cope with that, and how does one have and deal with the emotions and the nomenclature, the things that have to be done in order to survive in a society, semi-civilized society with an uncivilized disease, or whatever you want to call this thing. And the original story explores that at a plodding pace, but it does so. And I think that's one of the most interesting things about it, is the tightrope that they have to follow from civilized society and their savage lifestyle that comes out of it. This film didn't quite handle that dancing on a pin type of thing and how to do it. They were not subtle at all. They went after everything and everybody, and I suppose that's a method vis-a-vis Mad Max, which I think it was trying to emulate to a certain degree because it had influenced so many films with a post-apocalyptic vibe, which this did have, by the way, a little bit, even though it was supposedly, Western expanse in Oklahoma. Some of the things that weren't covered that always is interesting to me is that living forever, and what does that mean? It should provide you with kind of a more savvy approach to everything, or some sort of whimsical, I don't care, which is there, but in a careless way. A whimsical, I don't care, but careless doesn't quite add up for me. I want my vampires to be smart. I want them to be elusive in a convincing way. I want them so finely tuned to what's going on that stopping them is going to be difficult, and that it is chaos. As Bill mentioned, there's got to be a reason why. If it's a head trip for them, then make it a head trip. But also, in their insanity, show that they're cool and calculating to up the tension. And if they do something crazy, that there's no way in hell that's going to stop them, because it isn't crazy in the end. Are they indestructible? Yes, to a certain extent, and that does fill that check. Could fill that checkbox, but at the same time, the end of the film ends up being clumsy because of their stupidity along the way. And one of the notes that you brought up, I forget, I think it was Tony mentioned it, that if you have to be tucked in by sunrise, get an alarm clock, check your watch, do something. You've got to have that stuff figured out. And that was not figured out. I love the idea that they go and find a barn somewhere, pull in someplace, and sleep it off for the rest of the day. That certainly works for me, and I thought the way they did this was quite effortless. I like that, and that was part of the precision part I wanted to see more of. So there was a little bit there that was fun, and it made sense, and it looked like they'd done it 1,000 million times before and had it all figured out. I love that. I love the fact that the kid kind of, the kid vampire, what happens with them, and I guess that's a characterization, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But let me reset. But now to the vibe of the film. I agree with everybody. The vibe of the film is very interesting. There's something about it that is drawing me to it in the sense that it is visual, and we'll talk about the visual parts of the film. The characterization was interesting. It could have been a little better fleshed out, but there was potential there. And the way the film unfolded was also interesting. It worked completely well, but it reminded me of a film that I really enjoy that's absolutely awful, and it's called Shoot the Sun Down, a Western from, I think, 1978. There's something about that movie I really like, and I don't know why, because it's almost unwatchable. Yet I'll watch that film over and over again. I even have the Blu-ray version of it. I was waiting for it to come out. I watched it from an HBO recording I made for years, and it practically wore it out because I'd always pop it on. And that film had interesting pacing. Visuals were fantastic. Sound was good. It was a nicely executed film, but from a technical aspect, and even the acting was interesting. But somehow the plot just fell flat. But it was still visually interesting to watch, and I always enjoyed that film. This one kind of has that vibe to it. It's certainly not perfect. The story does not really lend itself to a clean times, and I still don't quite get everything that's going on. But there's a feeling to it that's interesting. Yes, it's tension-filled. Yes, it's action-filled. The characters are interesting. I'm not very sympathetic to them. I wish I were in some way, shape, or form. I'm not even really repulsed by them because their whole attitude is continuously the same. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm right down the middle on this one. I like it, and I don't like it for the same reasons that I like it. Does that make sense? No, it doesn't. Okay, let's move on to characterization. We'll start with Bill, N5BB. Bill, your thoughts on the cast and characterization for a film Near Dark from 1987 from KE5, ICX.
Oh, thank you, Tom. This is N5BB. And first, a comment about the blood transfusion. The way that I'm thinking, again, it isn't like somebody has given us, written in stone, the way that vampirism is spread. What I'm assuming is that somehow in the act of biting somebody and taking their blood, you infect them with this vampire disease. So if the person you bite, you don't kill, if they're still alive, then they will turn into a vampire. But so I'm assuming that's the reason they were killing all those people, is because they did not want them to turn into vampires. So they kind of killed them and then drank their blood. Or while they were drinking it, they killed them so that they could not turn into vampires. I'm assuming the way that worked. Well, if that's true, then maybe during the act of drinking the blood of your victim, you infect them with something. So what I was assuming about the transfusion, which was a wild idea that it seemed to work in the movie at least, is that maybe the idea that the vampirism was carried in your blood, and if you could put fresh blood into it from another person, although I really don't think it worked to do a complete body blood transfusion. I mean, his dad would have been dead if he transferred all of his blood into Caleb. So I didn't really understand that. You know, if you had some blood from a hospital or something, or certain, you know, a gallon of blood or something, that would have been fine. But I don't know. If you somehow drained all of your vampire blood and replaced it completely with fresh blood, non-vampire blood, then maybe it would wash it out of your system. I think that was the theory in the movie that was implied, but of course, how scientific can we be about a vampire movie? Not very. So, this is N5BB. You have to kind of bite your tongue, kind of shield your eyes, and not worry too much about that inconsistency thing. Okay, characterization. Of course, Caleb is, we want to care about him, because all he wants is a little bit of love, and he gets roped into this weirdness for no fault of his. Of course, he's a little bit of a wild character there, but not that wild, and he gets sucked into it. So we care about him. We learn about his family. We learn he really cares about his family. We learn that his family really cares about him. And they're willing to go way down into Texas to look for him. They go the wrong direction, in fact. But So we have an affinity for him and his family. Is it Meg, the female protagonist? We kind of care about her because she seems to care about Caleb. She's trying to protect him. She feeds him so he doesn't have to go and kill other people. And she's kind of protecting him from the baddies in the group. But she participates in all these nasty things with them. And, you know, it's a little unclear what was her motivation for biting Caleb in the first place. I guess maybe she loved him or she had she was smitten by him and maybe thought that he could be part of their group because of that. I don't know. I guess that's what happened. But didn't prevent her from being a nasty vampire. The older vampire guy, was it Jesse? I'm trying to remember his name. He was pretty darn evil. And he was just going to kill anybody for any reason and laugh at him as he was doing it and shoot the barkeeper and not worry about him shooting him and just laugh him. He was pretty evil. And driving like a bat out of hell and being very dangerous about it, like you mentioned. I mean, why are they driving around in the daylight? Are they stupid? This is in 5BB. Then there was the other guy, I don't remember his name, but he was the one that was the nastiest of them. He's the one that really wanted to kill Caleb and really wanted to be depraved when he was, you know, fighting with other humans, And I don't remember understanding anything about his backstory. I don't remember anything. It's just, where'd he come from? Who infected him? We don't really know. The kid was evidently very old, and that's why the kid was doing things like smoking and, you know, doing bad things. But evidently it had been a kid when they turned into a vampire, and so they remain the same age, of course. This is in 5BB. I just wish we had some kind of backstory. Meg, or whatever the girl's name was, we learned a little bit about her family or something. She said a few things about them, but not very much. I didn't get an idea about, did they infect each other? Like, did one of those people we saw, those vampires, create all the other ones there? Or were they separately bitten by other people and just happened to meet up with each other? Where did this come from? Did it come from somewhere else, or had it been in Oklahoma for thousands of years? We don't know. So I'm not saying they had to give us a complete history of this, but I wish they explained it a little bit, just a little bit. Anyway, so I guess that's my mixed feelings about the characterization. And 5BB, back to Ned.
Thank you, Bill. And good questions that could have expanded the story. I like that. Next up, Tony, NT5TM. Tony, your thoughts on characterization?
Thank you, Todd, and thank you, Bill. I'd like to take this moment to strongly recommend a book by the science fiction author Octavia Butler. Yeah, like she's got the female version of Augustus Caesar's first name, Octavia Butler. It was her last novel. It's called Fledgling, and it not only tries to create more believable vampires, but explain their world a lot better. It's a wonderful book. I reread it, I don't know, at least once a year for the past few years. I think it's great. If you want vampires that live in a world that makes more sense, Fledgling by Octavia Butler is the book to read. Not anything by Anne Rice. So I really did enjoy the characters in this movie. Yeah, amusingly, I learned all their names the first time I watched it, except for the guy played by Bill Paxton. He's the one I had to look up, because he only says his name once, and it's not, like Caleb is easy, May is easy, Jesse, okay, these are all kind of names. His name is Severin, which is kind of odd. I liked the fact that the characters were extremely distinct. Yeah, I think that Jeanette Goldstein can just play anyone and anything. She's just amazing. Because I found her and Lance Henriksen, Jesse, to be just absolutely killing. The way they work together, it's like, I don't need the beer, just a glass. And then, one of them cuts the waitress's throat and the other guy collects the blood. I mean, that is just... that's beyond Jeffrey Dahmer. That was scary. They were just they were like Batman and Robin of murder. Yeah, they were scary. I like their characters as horror movie characters. That said, yeah, Tom, I really do appreciate your comment about the word reckless, because the thing I really started wondering first time I saw this movie, and then again last night, I really wondered if Jesse and Diamondback, Lance Henriksen and Jeanette Goldstein, the kind of mother and father vampires, were just tired of being vampires. They seem to crave excitement more than survival, and they don't actually seem very upset about exploding at the very end. Kind of like, we'll try half-heartedly, but it would have been more fun to run Caleb over, and who really cares? They seem to have just gotten really bored and kind of craving stimulation, I guess, through greater evil. So yeah, I liked that the characters, of course, were different. I learned almost all their names. They were very striking, and there was that one unanswered question about... Can I hold the key down without coughing? Or, yeah, what I was going to say was, do they really want to keep living, or are they just done? Now that, that may be art by accident, that may just be, we're out of money and it's time to wrap the film up. But, yeah, I started wondering, Severin seemed to love killing, but I started wondering how much the other ones really wanted to keep going, and if they were actually kind of getting more and more reckless with the intent of seeking a big final explosion that would look good on film. NC5 PM.
All right, thank you, Tony. Thanks for those comments. By the way, thank you for mentioning that book by Octavia Butler, Fledgling. I had heard about Octavia Butler, and she has since passed on, but she's been compared with some of the greats, Robert Heinlein, Robert Silverberg, Arthur C. Clarke, Lester Del Rey, and a whole bunch of other people along the way. And I remember hearing about her on a radio program, and I just absolutely emoting over her, and I forgot about her, and I'm glad you reminded me. I'm going to look into this. I might look up. I think it's at the local library here. I'll check here in a little bit. Thank you. I appreciate that, and I look forward to reading a few of her novels along the way. Okay, next up is Sean, KB9SOK. Sean, your thoughts on characterization and acting in our fine film, Near Dark, from 1987.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. I don't know that I have a lot to add here. As everybody's mentioned, Caleb was obviously a willing victim. We did see him struggle back and forth a little bit, whether he wanted to be with May and go through the life, or go back to his family. Ultimately, of course, he chose family. So, of course we cared about him. Yes, we did care about May, too, because it seemed like, when he met her and they went for their drive, and, you kind of got the feeling that she wasn't 100% happy with the way things have been going, and especially once the group, the vampires got together, even though she was willing to kill, you never really got the impression, that it was her favorite thing, but she knew she had to survive. So, of course, she did kind of care about her, too. And, of course, she cared about Jacob's family. And, the vampires, I had no sympathy for them, which was the point. I don't think we were supposed to. And that's really about it on our characters. There really wasn't a whole lot else. I think the characters did good with what they had. This was just a little bit of a mixed plot a little bit there. Some good things and then some things that were lacking. But overall, I think the actors did a good job of what they were told to do. Once again, I just felt the vampires were a little over the top, and not that. Once again, it's fantasy. None of this is realistic. So, probably 25 years ago, 30 years ago, I probably wouldn't have thought twice about it. But maybe as you get older, you start thinking a little more about this kind of things, like, would that really exist, or would that really happen? But I guess at the end of the day, yes, too. I also appreciate the book recommendations, Tony. Might be something I may have to look into myself. But anyway, yeah, not a lot to add here, really. I think everybody covered it well. Back to that, KB9S, okay.
P5TM.
Tony, go ahead.
Sure, just to put in another plug for Octavia Butler. Yeah, she's not nearly as prolific as a lot of other science fiction writers, and she's no longer with us, so that won't change. But, even my mother, who does not read science fiction, has some Octavia Butler books. So, really give her a try. NC5TM.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. And thank you, Sean, for your comments. I appreciate it. Anyone else want to check in before we make my comments? We're talking characterization here, but the movie we're discussing is Near Dark from 1987, an Oklahoma vampire film. If you're into that sort of thing, this is what you want to check into. Anyone out there who'd like to join us, please come in. All right, I have solved a mystery for myself. I think I understand part of the reason why I like this film partially, and it does have to do with performances. There are two people in this film who that I really like. One I did not know by name, and I should have. Lance Henriksen as Jesse. He's the charismatic leader of the group. This guy, we've seen him play Bishop in the Alien franchise. He appeared, I think, as computer rendering in one of the later films, but he played the android in Alien, which he was very good at. He also played Frank Black in the Millennium TV series, which if you've not seen, you gotta see. It is a really wonderful series. Never got to the completion of the thing, but he's excellent in that show. He's a spin-off character from the X-Files. And then Bill Paxton as Severin, kind of the sexy but also repulsive vampire in this. Bill has appeared in many different shows. Of course, he was as he was in Apollo 13. I'm trying to remember the astronaut, not Fred Hayes, one of the other guys. I'll think of it eventually. even though I got good night's sleep, I'm getting old and I can't remember crap anymore. But the two of them are wonderful actors. Paxton played a wonderful role in one of the Marvel series, whatever that was. I can't remember. It was a bad guy in it. He was great. Let's go shopping, girls. And then he's got his machine gun ready to go in. Great actor, a lot of fun to watch. He's actually really fun to watch on screen, and this was no exception, this earlier film from 1987. So those two characters alone really worked for me because of the actors portraying them, and I didn't even know it at the time. And I did not know Bill Paxton was in this thing until I looked at the credits later on. That's how naive I was. The rest of the characters, fine. Caleb was okay. May was fine. I liked the kid vampire was kind of fun. I enjoyed that. Overall, the other characters were more of the bad guy types that you would expect. Dad was sympathetic for the most part, and the rest of the characters were handled adequately, secondary characters. But overall, I think it was a good ensemble piece with strong lead characters portrayed on screen. So I think that's a part of it. The last part is that the vibe, which we'll talk about on the third round, helps to cement a memorable film. Okay, those are my comments. We'll go ahead and take the third round on this one, and that is special effects, music, lighting, sound, anything we didn't cover in the first two rounds. We'll go ahead and kick it off with Bill, N5DB. Whatever you want, Bill, go right ahead from KE5, ICX.
Okay, thank you, Tom. This is N5DB. Again, I think as a lot of us thought about this, we were intrigued by this movie, but there were some kind of issues. It's kind of weird. The production qualities was okay. As has been mentioned, as in a lot of these movies back then, and still, there's explosions like crazy. And they're kind of over the top. The blood-sucking and death parts of it are realistic, kind of squirmy. I guess Tony would say it's supposed to be evil, but it's not hidden. It's right out there in the open. They're not just assumed to be evil. You see them being evil. You're witnessing it. You're in the room. You're very, very scared. I don't know. I guess the music did not bother me. Right now, I can't remember it. I wasn't noticing, I guess. I was kind of too, I guess, shocked by the action to notice the music specifically. So, I don't know. To me, it was, I mean, based on somebody's, on the screenplay, I thought the direction was okay. I guess the screenplay was okay, although, like I say, I would have put other things in it other than them just, killing everybody in the next bar down the road. And, all the sheriff's deputies and all that stuff. To me, there's too much of that and not enough of anything else. Are they contemplating what it means to be, quote, immortal? No. Are we really learning, are they really immortal, or Can they kill each other? They act like they could. If they blow up, does it kill them? If the sunlight hits them, does it just hurt them or does it kill them? They seem to recover until the very end from all that. So this is all the lore of the vampire stuff that they kind of play around with but don't answer those questions. I don't think they meant to answer those questions. This is Inside BB. So I don't know. At the end of the movie, could there be a sequel? If there was a sequel, what would be in it? It appeared to me that all the vampires died, except that Meg was transformed back into a human, and Caleb. And maybe a prequel. I would like to learn, how did they get where they were? What made them into that? Was becoming a vampire, did it create all these evil tendencies? Or was there something else that it magnified in their personality that led them to do all these things? I don't know. But I wish they'd approach some of those things rather than just concentrating on essentially car chases and blowing things up and shooting everybody, which is what a lot of these action movies want to do. And to me, I'm tired of that. I got tired of it a long time ago. It turns me off. So that's the part of this movie that distressed me. I think they could have implied some things rather than showing it out front, and I think they could have had people discussing things, discussing concepts and what it means to be what they were, but they didn't do that. That disturbed me a bit. So anyway, I guess that's it. Inside BB, back to Ned.
All right, thank you, Bill. Taking notes on that. Next up, Tony, NT5TM. Your thoughts, final thoughts, and technical aspects of the film, or anything we haven't covered so far from KE5 ICX.
Well, thank you to everybody who has stayed up and commented. I really appreciate it because I own this movie and I've watched it many times, but now I'm learning more about it, and that's really cool. I've never even heard of the show Millennium, and back in the 90s I did sometimes watch TV, so I could still have been in the market, but they didn't reach me, so I will look into that. It sounds very interesting. Third round comments. You could, the thing that always kind of goes last in a movie's budget is sound and dialogue. Location sound is usually crappy. They have to do a ton of overdubbing, and low-budget movies never have the money to bring people back and do all that ADR, so you can really hear the noise gates cutting in and out. Most of the dialogue is understandable, but there are some places where, even though this is like my 7th viewing of the movie, I still have never understood what a character says in a particular spot. It's just too low. I think that, unlike with modern movies where they're trying to make it hard to understand, that's just a consequence of its location sound and the actors are quiet and the budget wasn't there. I don't think they were trying to hide things. The technical aspect of this movie that I think shines, pun intended, is the lighting. The locations are cheap. I think, according to the credits, a lot of it was filmed outside of in and around a small town in Arizona. Oh, look, we need an empty barn. Oh, look, we need some railroad tracks. The locations are cheap. They scream cheap. The actors were, not nobodies, but, Tom Cruise was not in this movie. The sound was cheap. Where they really seem to have excelled, because it doesn't cost much, was very moody lighting. The movie does not have a consistent color cast. I can't get upset about that, but the blue lighting and golden lighting, and there's a moment where we see all the vampires kind of standing along the top of a hill, and they look kind of shiny, but not in a good way. lighting often does not make any sense. If you watched it intellectually, you'd have to wonder, why are the vampires on this little ridge of ground so intensely backlit? Is there a plane about to take off behind them? Why is everything here so gray or so yellow or so red? But the answer is just because it suits the mood. And whoever did the lighting for this really got me to suspend my disbelief. So to me, that is the technically best part of the movie, is the very moody and atmospheric lighting. It didn't depend on a lot of other special effects. We don't have, scenes of fangs growing in people's mouths like we do in movies that have bigger budgets, even old silent movies that had bigger budgets. But they did what they could with the lights, and that was my technically favorite part of the film. NT5TM.
Very good. Thank you, Tony. Next up is Sean. Your final comments on the film, technical aspects, music, lighting, any of those pieces, or something we haven't covered so far that you would like to mention from KE5, ICX.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. I don't know about that here either. The music to me didn't really bother me or was really memorable, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. This wasn't that kind of movie. For the most part, I don't remember having problems hearing what the people said, actually. I thought the audio was okay there. Yes, I thought the lighting was good. As we've talked about many, many, many times on this net, the modern day with the drab color and the horrible tone and just bland, I don't know why we even bothered to create HDR televisions and projectors, because nothing would utilize it these days unless you're watching an old movie. So yeah, it's kind of funny. But anyway, I thought that was fine. The explosions were a little cheesy, but everything was in the 80s for that kind of thing. Just kind of a last final thought on this was, yes, this wasn't a deep thinker. It kind of started out like it was going to be, because we had the first probably 20 minutes it was a little bit of a slow burn at the beginning, where we had obviously Jacob being slowly lured into the life, and we were, it kind of led you down that path that maybe this was going to be a really in-depth life, and then it kind of turned into an action movie. And I think they kind of did that. I don't think they ever intended for this to be a deep thinker. I think this is just a good old-fashioned popcorn movie that you're supposed to just sit back and just kind of enjoy. Kind of go with it. Let your mind go with the disbelief. Don't think too deeply about it. Just enjoy it. I really think that's what this was meant for. It doesn't really bother me to go too deep. I mean, it'd be nice, but to be honest, had they got super deep, the movie would have been probably a really slow pace. It might have been boring. I don't know. I'm actually okay with that part of it. I do think that there was definitely some plot holes in this, for sure, that's already been mentioned. But all in all, it was okay. Like I said, I'm glad I watched it. Don't know if I'd watch it again. I would say if you are a fan of vampires, I would say watch this. If vampires aren't your thing at all, then I'd say probably not. I think that's pretty straightforward. And overall, I will give this a C. I think that's the rating I finally concluded to. So as always, been a very interesting conversation. It's just been the few of us. It's always fun to see something you haven't seen. And I haven't seen this one. So anyway, looking forward to the next one. Back to that, KB9SOK.
All right. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, everybody, for your comments this evening. Let's see, a couple of things. Going back to what Bill said, with the lack of backstory in that, this world building. Another example of world building. Now, this is fantasy or horror or a combination of both, I guess, with a little bit of Western thrown in. The thing is with world building, as an example, this film, to me, and I mentioned it earlier, it kind of reminds me of the Mad Max series. is that we know something happened. There was the voiceovers through, I think it was the Road Warrior, because a lot of people hadn't seen the original film, where they explain what happened with a backstory. But the reality of those films is that we don't know what happened really and how, and we don't know the total backstory of characters, but we're intrigued by how they are in the here and now. And we want to know more about their backstory because they're so colorful and interesting. This movie could have done the same thing. Our characters are colorful and interesting, brutal, maybe and maybe unsympathetic, but we want to know how they got there. Bill nailed it. I think that's part of what's missing in this film. Now, to counteract that, Sean mentions and says, I don't think this movie was meant to be anything other than just a popcorn film. And that may be true. That may be exactly what it was. It was a popcorn film that should have been meaningless and completely throwaway, that was done in a meaningful way that is memorable. Contrast that with the film I was trying to remember this week that I went to see and couldn't remember, the blockbuster. And finally Randy told me, he says, it was Disclosure Day that we went to see. And I went, oh yeah, I couldn't remember the movie. It's impactful, I suppose, and I found it interesting in ways, but I'd already forgotten it. It's already off my recent memory list, so how good could it be in the end? Will I remember Close Encounters of the Third Kind as a blockbuster film? Yes, I will. I'll always remember that film. There were so many good scenes in it. Was it flawed? Yes. Disclosure Day, on the other hand, am I going to remember anything? Well, there's so many tropes in it, and there are some moments that are okay through the whole thing, but overall, it's a forgettable film, to be honest with you. So I think that your director is everything. I think that they can make a reasonably good film. I think really good directors will make really good films nearly all the time. And some really good directors, like Steven Spielberg, can sometimes make a movie that nobody cares about, and that does happen. So we keep that in mind, and everything gets a rating. Everything is from terrible to excellent, and everything in between. And so film is like that. You're going to grade it on many different levels, and that's why we sit and we do this, and we keep coming back every week to talk about these films. And sometimes we get them in the middle. They're not quite right. There's things wrong with them, but they're still intriguing and they're interesting, and there's things that we can learn from them, both from the story and from the technical aspects of making the film as well. And there's memorable aspects and things that aren't memorable about them. And I think that's what's fun, and that brings us back to why we do this. It's kind of fun to talk about these films. Making science fiction, making horror, making fantasy films are difficult to do, even on a good day. They're hard to do. So when somebody takes that on as a director, you know, and they take it seriously, you got to say, good luck, man. That's not the easiest genre to take on. Or you can have, you know, the latest comic book movie with senseless everything going on, and people like it, but to me, it's like, I don't care. There's nothing particularly innovative or different about it anymore. It's all the same over and over again. That's my opinion on those things. I'm sure people have their feelings about them that are different, but when you get something like this that's a one-off, and it has memorable characters, memorable dialogue, memorable scenes, but has some things that are cringeworthy, that's okay. I don't mind. I don't mind at all. Okay, and with that, those are my final comments. Next week's movie, it is a science fiction film called Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. It is a comedy, science fiction one, but it looks like it could be interesting. I think it got a thumbs up critically, so we'll just see how that all works out. I'll send out the link to it probably tomorrow morning sometime, and you'll get it in your inbox so you can check it on Facebook. That's it for me. I want to thank you all. I had a good time. This was great. Enjoyed. This was a pretty good discussion, even though it was sparsely attended. We had a chance to talk about it. I enjoyed it very much. So we'll do this again next week. This is D5 ICX. I'm Cliff. Thanks.
Really appreciate it, NT5TM.